Joining me now is our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aaron Levarco, brought to you by our foundation, WorldviewFoundation.com. Aaron, big day here in America, big day for Israel. We talked about it for a full hour on radio today. Folks will find that later at WorldviewTube.com and WorldviewRadio.com. Before we have you comment on it, here it is. Here is the feed from the White House and C-SPAN. Here we go. The arrival of Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, the first leader, the first world leader to be welcomed to President Trump's White House for his second term, which you and I talked about on radio today, I think is big news. That Benjamin Netanyahu is first official visit from a foreign leader, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now we're hearing next week, the next visitor will be Jordan. And we showed a map today of Israel and Jordan. And I'm going to show it here in a minute to everybody else. But the king of Jordan next week. Tell our TV audience what you said about that today, that these two guys are the ones coming in, Netanyahu and then Jordan, which, of course, Jordan is one of the two countries, Egypt being the other, where Trump has said, you guys are going to take these Palestinians. You're going to take the Gazans, the pro-Hamas people. You're going to absorb them back into your country. We're cleaning out the Gaza.
Well, I don't know whose initiative it is for the King Abdullah to come, whether it's the king himself or whether Trump is, quote unquote, summoning him because he wants to say a few words to him. But this has been on the table for the last, practically since Donald Trump came to power. He has put a plan on the table, and Jordan and Egypt are the two main countries that he wants to send the Palestinian people into, especially Hamas. He wants to clear out the Gaza Strip, and especially the terrorists and the tunnels under the ground. And he wants to rebuild it, which will take 15 to 20 years. There's a picture. There's Israel. To our east is Jordan. To our southwest is Egypt. And let me remind the viewers that 70% of geographical Palestine is actually Jordan. So they can have a Palestinian place or a Palestinian state there.
Wait a minute. Say that last sentence again, please.
70% of geographical Palestine that was mapped out by the PLO in 1970 is Jordan. It's on the east side of the Jordan River. So there you go. And no one talks about that, Brannon.
So they're on the wrong side of Israel even.
Yeah, exactly. And why don't the Jordanians say, here's, you can have your state? Because of Israel. That's why. So it will be a very interesting talk to see whether King Abdullah agrees or whether he will be coerced or heavily persuaded to agree to absorb Palestinian people into his territory. And historically, no one has wanted Palestinian people there. In fact, his father, King Hussein, in September 1970, he actually murdered 20,000 Palestinians. It's called Black September. If people want to look it up, in September 1970, 20,000 Palestinians were killed because they were troublemakers. They were causing problems. I mentioned to you earlier, Brannon, what would be nice is if the Christian Arabs in these countries, Jordan and Egypt, if they somehow were able to reach out to these vulnerable people. When anyone goes into a country, when anyone immigrates, there's a vulnerability. There's needs. They want to settle down. Maybe the Christians in these countries can reach out with the true gospel, with the true Christian love, and many of them will turn to the Lord and become Christians.
Well, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? All right, let's go to some behind-the-scene footage tonight coming from somebody inside the White House. This is President Trump walking through the West Wing, getting ready to greet the Prime Minister. Watch this. pretty cool footage from inside the White House behind the scenes there. That's pretty cool, isn't it, Aaron?
There was some pretty hearty handshakes going on there.
Were. Yes, I did.
Very friendly, hearty handshakes and good feel factor. I saw Mike Huckabee, good friends with BB for many, many years. So this is a good start, definitely.
Here's a little conversation, not a very long clip. This was in the Oval Office today. Here we go.
How many people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking about probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
Wow, look at that. Let's roll that again. I want to hear that number.
How many people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking about probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008.
Wow, 0.7 million, 0.8 people, getting them out of there. And of course, we have some of the hostages that came out and said, one of the gals said, "Dad, there are 2 million terrorists in Palestine." All of these people, even down to the kids, said, we hate you, we spit on you. I mean, she's like, they're all in with the terrorist.
Yeah. Brandon, this is what someone called a massive paradigm shift. This is a huge shift especially from the previous administration. And for him to put that on there, he's adamant. The way he's talking, the way he's put this on the table, he's it seems to me quite adamant that he's going to try to make this and implement this. And that's part of the talks with Netanyahu and with King Abdullah from Jordan.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so what do you think is going to come from all of this? And I want to speak prophetically, because you and I talked about this on the radio today. We care about this as Christian Zionists, because we believe that God is providentially using leaders to set up what is going to be the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And at some point, we have to have some kind of peace agreement. Now, that doesn't mean that President Trump will be the one that confirms it, because that would have implications we don't even want to talk about. And we're not saying that. But what we are saying is, whether it's Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, all these other presidents that have gotten agreements, we need to have them eventually confirmed. So President Trump, if he can get some of these things done, could help set up that scenario into the future where someone, which is an Antichrist figure the scriptures talk about, confirms this peace treaty. And the word in the original language seems as though he's just putting into effect what has already been written, whether it's the Camp David Accords, the Oslo Accords, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I see two things, Brandon. I see what you're saying, that this is going to head towards some kind of peace deal, and it will be a nice, warm feel factor. Saudi Arabia, by the way, have just said that us entering into the Abraham peace accords does not depend on a Palestinian state. They've backtracked. At first, a number of months ago, they said us joining the Abraham peace accords must be predicated by a Palestinian state. Now they're saying the opposite. It doesn't depend. So there will be, I see it, there's going to be a time of peace. But the second thing I see, I'm quite concerned about, and that's basically the borders of Israel. It may be a time of relative peace, but I've got a deep gut feeling that this, our borders are not going to be as secure as we would like them to be. And that's a big part of the post-October 7 plan for our military, for our government. Bibi said on October the 8th, we're going to have a different Middle East. Well, he's right. We are seeing that. We're going to see it more. But how secure our borders are going to be. And the big question is what's going to happen with the Gaza Strip? Now, by the way, since while I've been on standby here, Brandon, I've been watching Bibi and Donald Trump taking questions at the White House. And Donald Trump basically, he America basically will rule the Gaza Strip.
Yes, that's exactly what we've gotten out of it. The U.S. is going to rule it. You know, maybe they could build a Trump hotel or two in there. But that's exactly what I'm picking up from tonight's clips coming out, is that President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are agreeing the U.S. is going to go in there and basically rule the Gaza.
Yeah, now that may be good while there's a Trump administration, while there's a Trump presidency. God forbid, what would happen if someone like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden should come back into power? What would happen, Brannon?
Yeah.
And by the way, something really big, or rather very diplomatic, I heard Donald Trump say when he talked about Israeli settlement in the Gaza Strip, because I don't know if the viewers are aware, but many of our right-wing religious government and people in the right-wing sector, they want to go in and settle the Gaza Strip. It's our land. It's part of the promised land, Brannon. And so they feel we gave chance to the Palestinian people. We gave in 2004, 2005. We pulled out. They blew it. Now is the time to settle. Now listen to what Donald Trump said. He said he does not necessarily support settlement in the Gaza Strip of Jewish people. He was very careful with his word. He doesn't necessarily. Now, he has to be careful, because we talked about this earlier, Brannon, Joel 3:2, where God is going to bring the nations into the valley of Jehoshaphat. In Hebrew, Jehoshaphat means God will judge. The valley of Jehoshaphat, and there he will judge them on two accounts: that you have scattered my people among the nations, and you have divided my land. And I wonder if Donald Trump knows that verse. Someone's whispered that verse in his ear, so he doesn't want to be responsible or guilty for dividing the land. So he's saying, I am not necessarily in support of Jewish settlement.
And America better stay away from that if we don't want the judgment of God. Because I believe there's a strong correlation. Genesis 12, I'll bless those who bless you, I'll curse those who curse you. That if we start pressuring Israel to divide our land, I think that can bring judgment on us, or God further removing his hand of protection. That's my personal belief on that. People can disagree and we can still be friends. But here's the other issue. We know what the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, he said. There will be no two-state solution under Donald Trump's administration. He has said that. He said that before President Trump was sworn in. He is on record, over his lifetime as an adult, saying the two-state solution will never work. It won't work. And I can't imagine, as you and I have discussed before, that Mike Huckabee would agree to take the job if he's going to be the guy to force a two-state solution that he, A, doesn't see working, and B, he knows the Bible. And I also know, by the way, there are Messianic Jews, which for those who may be new to the audience don't know what that means. That is a Jew who believes that Jesus is Messiah, because whereas some Jews are waiting on the Messiah, these are Jews like Aaron. Aaron's a Messianic Jew. Aaron believes Jesus is Messiah, and he's accepted him as his personal Lord and Savior. So he is what we would call a Messianic Jew. Well, I know for a fact there are at least one or two Messianic Jews working in the West Wing. I know that for a fact, because I know who they are.
Yeah.
Which means they may be telling President Trump or advising President Trump from this perspective, right? Not the secular Jewish perspective, but maybe an Orthodox or a Messianic Jewish perspective. They're saying, Mr. Trump, this is what we got to be worried about.
Absolutely. In Trump's last administration, do you know the name Jay Sekulow? I think his name is
Jay Sekulow. He's Jewish.
Yeah, he's a Messianic Jew.
And he's very close to President Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, two things. Not only does America have to be careful to divide the land, but the other area that they have to be careful is to stop Jewish building and settlement in the promised land. And that's a different issue. And that's what he was touching on.
Here's a clip. What? That's all right. Watch this, folks. Watch this.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it. and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
This is, I don't know if our audience understands how big this is. This is historic. This is humongous. I mean, I can't even put into words how big this is tonight, this story. This is huge. The quote Donald Trump, this is huge, right?
Huge.
From a global perspective, from a historical perspective, from a biblical prophetic perspective, this has shockwaves. And can you imagine the left, how they're about to come completely unglued? And of course, the next question before the night is over is going to be, is Donald Trump preparing to develop his company to develop the Gaza itself? I don't care. Put a Trump hotel there. I don't care. But the left is they're about to go nuts.
Yeah. He actually talked and he said, and I quote, he said, we want to get other Arab nations on board. And I quoted earlier the UAE and Saudi Arabia he wants to get on board to help. But then he said it may be one, it may be two, it may be four, it may be six, it may be 8 nations that help. By the way, did you pick up what he said? He said that we want to make it a good, peaceful place and create jobs for the people in the region. Now, I'm a little confused because he wants to get out 1.7 million Palestinians. So who does he want to create the jobs for, Brannon? Who's going to live there? This is a really intriguing. Who is going to resettle the place? And who's going to and when it gets rebuilt, who is it going to be rebuilt for? These are big questions. We've been talking about this for 16 months, the day after. What is the day after going to look like? So he's talked about America moving in, rebuilding, probably with a number of wealthy Arab nations. But who in the end, in the long term, who's going to live there, Brannon? This is a big question. He hasn't laid that card on the table yet.
No, he has not laid it on the table. All right. So what other concerns do you have?
Well, the main one is, of course, security, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, while it's good for now, this administration, Republican, conservative, pro-Israel, and Bibi Netanyahu, one of the first things he said when he stood up and spoke to the press, he said Donald Trump is the greatest friend as a president that Israel has ever had in her history. So we're really thankful. We're excited. There is definitely a positivity in the air. Now, can you imagine what are Hamas thinking and feeling and talking about, Brannon?
Right now, can you imagine right now what they're thinking? Oh, man. And how is this going to play for getting the rest of the hostages back? I mean, is this going to cause Hamas to say, the deal is off, we're holding your hostages as leverage to not have this happen?
Yeah, they may be like a captain that goes down with its sinking ship and won't get off the boat. They may say, well, if we're going to go down, we're going to take these captives with.
And that means a lot of the hostages' families tonight are probably a little nervous right now. I would be if my family was over there and this just got announced at the White House with Benjamin Netanyahu standing to the right of the president.
Yeah, you're right. Totally right, Brannon. You are totally right. I would be concerned as well. It's really interesting. I've been following a lot of Israelis. They are more positive towards Trump getting the captives back than they are Bibi.
Wow.
A lot of them have given up on Bibi. They've made up their mind. They don't like him. They'll never like him. They hate him. But they are optimistic because look what's happened in the 2 weeks since Trump has been in power.
2 weeks or 1 day.
Exactly.
Here's another clip, Aaron, for the sake of time. Here we go.
I do see a long-term ownership position. And
I do see a long-term ownership position in the Gaza. We can play it again.
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over. It's just a terrible sight. I've studied it. I've studied this very closely over a lot of months, and I've seen it from every different angle, and it's a very, very dangerous place to be, and it's only going to get worse. And I think this is an idea that's gotten tremendous, and I'm talking about from the highest level of leadership, gotten tremendous praise. And if the United States can help to bring stability and peace in the Middle East, we'll do that.
Wow.
Wow.
This is a huge historic night.
You know what?
And can I say something, Aaron?
Yeah.
This is where Fox News and all the rest of them, I'm sorry, they cannot compete with us. Because what we did, we had a lady call into our show live today from Arizona. And what did Lily say? Her name was Lily. And she called in and she thanked us. And she commended you and our network. And my wife and I and Logan talked about it when that show went off the air. None of the other networks can compete with us because none of them have the worldview, the eschatology, the understanding that we have. That's not bragging, that's fact. No other network broadcasting to our caliber can compete with us on this topic. They're in our wheelhouse now, baby, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I couldn't say it any better. This is very, very historic of mass proportion. And as I was watching that clip you just showed, the verse that came to me, blessed are the peacemakers. And that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. Now, I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about now. He is trying to really bring, as he said, peace and stability. Now, did you see this coming? I didn't see this coming.
I didn't see this coming. In fact, look at what your prime minister. And by the way, the press conference tonight was really delayed. So I don't even know if Benjamin Netanyahu knew some of these things that were going to come. Listen to what your prime minister said tonight. Here we go.
I'm honored that you invited me to be the first foreign leader to visit the White House in your second term. This is a testament to your friendship and support for the Jewish state and the Jewish people. I've said this before, I'll say it again. You are the greatest friend Israel has ever had in the White House. And that's why the people of Israel have such enormous respect for you.
Wow. Aaron?
Wow, I'm a little stunned. But in a positive way. I mean, the news tomorrow when I go back to bed and wake up, it's gonna really. I mean, think of the communities on the border of Gaza, thinking about their children, their future now. That at least for the foreseeable future. When Donald Trump said it looks like we're going to be here for some time. Like I said, it's going to take at least 15 to 20 years to rebuild Gaza. First, by the way, there's still hundreds of miles of tunnels under the ground. I don't know what they're going to do with them, but think of the Jewish communities. Remember, 60 communities were wiped out on October the 7th. So there's going to be rebuilding. People are going to be able to go back. They're going to be able to rebuild. Plan for their future, and there will be peace.
Yep. One more clip. I run out of time. Look at this.
I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good. And it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza.
Well, there you go. I got 15 seconds. Closing comment, Aaron.
The new sheriff is coming to town, Brannon. And our piece is going to be in the south for now. Let's hope it goes the same up in the north. I'm concerned with Turkey coming into Syria.
Yep, lighttothenationsministry.com. Aaron, thank you for getting up so early to be with us tonight, folks. All right. Wow, great report. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. All right, welcome back. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to be joined by Scott Scara here in just a minute, and a little bit later, Bill Jasper. You do not want to miss this heartbreaking story of Scott out of Wisconsin related to his daughter, which he describes on his website as medical murder. You have to hear this. You better have some tissues as well, because it's a sad story. But this father, he is advocating not only for justice and repentance for what happened to his daughter, but he's advocating for your family. He's not going to stop. I've been reading his story, texting with him, hearing about what he's up to, and I'm eager to interview him tonight. Scott Scara will join us in just a minute, and then Bill Jasper. Hey, look at this, folks. This is the water filter you need. Those filters on your refrigerator are garbage. You know that, right? If you want to not get cancer, I would think you would want to make sure you're eating the right foods. Food as medicine. And I would think if you don't want to get cancer and other problems, you might want to be drinking clean water. Because I think, I'm not making claims, but I think arsenic and pesticides and lead and all these other things, fluoride, can be tied back to bad health and cancer, can it not? And yet we know how bad the water is, tested all over this country, not to mention the lead pipes. So, along with Bella Grace, along with Gatatana, along with Numi, we got to have good drinking water. So we're happy to work with Century H2O. We have one of these under our kitchen sink. This is the water we drink. This is the water Dolly drinks. She loves the water, by the way. This is the far right unit there on the bottom is the one I use for the shower, our shower head, so that we're not also absorbing these chemicals into our body. Ammonia, lead, fluoride, cyanide, copper, chlorine, arsenic, pesticides, bacteria, all kinds of pharmaceuticals. So go to worldviewwater.net, please. Worldviewwater.net. I'm going to get that fixed. Worldviewwater.net. Again, worldviewwater.net, and get your order in for one of these, will you please? Very, very, very important. Worldviewwater.net. And then let's see, what else do we have? Don't forget about going over to Swish for Life. SwishForLife.com. This is loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. We know there are bad things in the environment and the food. We know there are things in the fabrics. You got people shedding on you, perhaps, that have gotten the toxic shot. Maybe you've taken the shot. You want to detox your cells. Well, there are 162,000 studies on PubMed. Glutathione. You want to detox your cells. Swish with it for 3 minutes and then spit it out. Or swallow it, whichever you want, and you got glutathione in your system within 90 seconds. Some studies show glutathione may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Swish for Life. Look, this is the power of three. Bella Grace, Gatatana, and Numi. This is the trifecta, folks. This is the trifecta. So please, check it out. All the information is there at swishforlife.com.